Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts,
Arch-Elector George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
And for this special episode, we talk with special guest, multiple-time Meme of the Week winner, Croker McGee. So, let's get started. As usual, you know, we must start off our episodes with thanking you all. People like Croker is what really keeps us going, you know. And I just really like a lot of you. You guys are so nice. Right, guys? Right, guys?
That was a kind of weird way of saying it, but yes, Jeffrey, we do in fact deeply love all of our viewers.
Why would that be weird, Harrison? Is there?
Yeah, it's not weird at all. It's not weird at all, and definitely doesn't expose any underlying insecurities.
Yeah, it doesn't. So I don't see the issue. But yeah, so we want to thank you all. Your support really does mean a lot. It does. And just keep, hitting us up on the social medias and our YouTube page, which eventually me and George will get, tidied up.
We will.
At some point. So, yeah. What else? Well, Croker, before we get into things, tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into the First Law? How'd you hear about us? That kind of thing.
Well, getting into the First Law, I used to go to a bookstore. Remember those?
Oh, yeah.
I think you remember those, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Well, I know what a bookstore is. Jesus.
Way to age me.
We still have those here.
Way to age me, Croker. Go ahead.
So, I used to go to a bookstore at the mall. Remember those, Jeffrey? And I was in the fantasy section. I'm kind of a fantasy nerd, and I think I saw the cover of the paperback to Best Served Cold, and I grabbed it, and I'm like, oh, what is this? And I saw that it was a standalone, and I think on the cover it said like some blurb about, set in the First Law universe or something like that. And so I was like, oh, what's that? And they happened to have the First Law trilogy on the shelf. So I just decided to buy all 4 books and read them in order, and was immediately hooked. And that was when I was probably in my mid-20s. So been a fan for a long time. And yeah, I got a few other people to read it too, like one of my coworkers who was a lot older than me.
Spreading the good word.
Yeah, I believe that word of mouth can help build the community.
It does. It's how we got started here, right?
Yes, sir.
And I think, as far as you guys are concerned, I think I was just on Reddit and I typed in First Law and found the sub and joined it. So, and then I remember you guys were having or somebody was having a discussion about starting your podcast, and you guys were pushing it.
That'd be me. That was me starting
Yes.
that like a goofball.
So I just decided to check it out, and been listening since the first episode.
Love that. Well, we hope that we've been a consistent, pleasant experience for you.
Well,
Yeah.
it's like, I think a lot of people in the community realize that they don't have people in their immediate circle to talk about this kind of stuff with. So when you find somebody online, you just you found your tribe, and you just kind of glom onto them and through
That's
a shared
exactly right.
experience,
That is one of the nicest things somebody's ever said about us. Oh my God.
I mean, it's honestly it was like the whole thing that Jeff actually originally reached out for too, is like, I don't have anybody to talk to about this nerdy thing. Does anybody want to do this with me? And I mean, George and I just, we all clicked together, so it worked out pretty well. But that's pretty awesome to hear that, that the dream is realized.
Yeah, it is really cool. because I got into fantasy, like fantasy proper, I guess, with the Song of Ice and Fire. We all know, like, there's a big fandom around it, a lot of different sites, forums, right? You know, you could there are podcasts or
Still waiting for Winds of Winter.
me and you both, buddy. Me, you, and everybody.
One day.
Yeah. And
Martin has blue ball to stall, man. Bricked up over here, Georgie. Come on,
just backed up, son. And yeah, so when it came to the first law, I was like, there was a subreddit and there's a Discord, but it's just like not a lot of like content around it, and it's like, you know, just want to consume it all. So I figured, well, yeah, why not just do it ourselves? So thank you for that, Croker. It's really nice, appreciative. So let's just go ahead and start with the first theory, because Croker's the theme for today's episode is some theories. Let's discuss some theories. Now, this first one that we're going to talk about that you mentioned is one that's been bandied about quite often, I think. One that even me and Harrison had to shout down George on a YouTube video. But it's always nice to revisit stuff. And I believe this first one, Croker, is Baez an eater? Croker, why don't you go ahead and take us through it?
So initially, when I read the books, I was under the impression that he wasn't. Because even though he employed an eater with sulfur, and the idea that he had one in the past with Shanked, you know, so he wasn't above using eaters. So I thought, well, maybe he's one himself, but there's no real evidence for it. And the only evidence that, I mean, if you can call it that I found was in the Heroes, in that last scene where he's talking to Calder, and he's sitting, you know, by the corpse pit eating meat. And I think it's interesting that Joe never describes what kind of meat people are eating. You just have to kind of assume like it's lamb or beef or pork or something.
Right.
But the fact that he uses that ambiguous label of meat, and then that made me kind of think back to when Logan first encounters him. It's, you know, he thinks he's a butcher, and it just says that he's butchering meat.
And I absolutely agree. I mean, have you seen our video on the YouTube?
I think I started to watch it, but I got distracted because.
And that's our fault. It's not the best done video, to be honest. That was back in the heydays of my rant. I think I've come along a little bit since then.
He's more refined now. George, do you? I mean, that lines up pretty well with your thoughts on the theory as well. I mean, that last scene was pretty significant in the Heroes for your theory as well. What other aspects did you say were part of your original theory? There was another part that you mentioned. I'm trying to remember what it was, though. Something to do with the Age of Madness, I thought.
Oh yeah, no. There's plenty that lines up with the Age of Madness. I'm sure you'll agree, Croker, that Baez kind of always acts and kind of behaves a little bit more. He's always a little bit more youthful. And I don't know if that's just because of him using the seed at the end of the last trilogy, but after 20 years, you'd expected that to have faded a little bit. And I like the idea that he would turn to Ethan after he's defeated his arch rival for Ethan, especially. And he would just turn around and go, no, I'm just going to do it anyway.
I mean, Khalul is an eater, right? I mean, him and Mamoon broke the second law together.
Sure.
According to Yulwei. And I always thought that Baez's youthful appearance was because of the seed. I don't know if it's a thing in Joe's universe, but in most fantasy settings, there's kind of a cost, you know, to doing magic. Well, there is in Joe's universe, the first law, right? You borrow from the other side. And so I'm wondering if by sacrificing part of the Agrion and part of Adjua to use the seed, if the other side gave him back like change almost in the form of a more youthful appearance and more energy. And you got to remember that the Magi kind of live, they live centuries. So what's a few decades as far as youthful appearance, right?
It's interesting. I always, the way I've seen the scene thing, I agree with you. The seed kind of gave back his youthful appearance. My thought is that there is some form with the high art, whether it's innate or they're actually channeling it, that keeps all of the Magi younger. But whenever they are busy trying to cast all this other magic, trying to maintain that immortality is significantly harder. And so whenever he got that boost from the seed, he basically just was able to have unlimited power for a short time, and so he used that to reinvigorate himself.
Oh, that's interesting.
Sorry, Croker. I'll just interject for a second. But that doesn't really preclude that you can get power from various sources, whether it be the other side directly through the seed, or if you can get power through however they're doing it with eating human flesh. Obviously, that's a way to gain power through the other side in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so maybe this is one off after 10, 15 years, and he's been addicted to being young or feeling young again. So he feels the urge to go and find other kind of powers, even if he's previously condemned it and it makes him a hypocrite.
That's entirely possible too. I mean, because the eaters themselves are, these like centuries old beings. I mean, you had Schickel in before they were hanged, I guess, is a relatively young eater, but it seems like there's more involved than just eating the flesh of men. In my estimation, it's got to be more of a ritual that goes on.
Yeah,
I think because even in our world, you have what's known as survival cannibalism, right? Like that plane crash in the Andes that they made the movie about.
Yeah,
like where they were just eating to live, but they just happened to be.
You're definitely right that the intent needs to be there. There needs to be some kind of intent to go, I'm going to eat this person because I want to absorb their power, and there has to be some kind of other ritual, and the way that works is completely fucking nebulous because Joe refuses to show us anything in Gurkle.
Right. But I mean, because even Logan offhandedly tells Kwai, like if you die, I could eat you, and like use your meat as sustenance to get to the Northern Library.
Exactly, and we've seen it. We've seen that examples of rituals do work, and we know that Salt's ritual did work on Morovia. Managed to kill him, even though he was complete amateur. So it's like, yeah, these rituals actually do work, and maybe Baez is doing this kind of things behind the scenes, and maybe some of those things involve eating or not. Who knows?
Well, and then the idea that he had at least two eaters in his service, Shanked and then eventually Sulfur, shows that he's not above using
we don't
them.
know that Shanked actually ate in Baez's service. We don't know if he turned to that afterwards.
Oh, that's a good point, George.
That is well, no, that's fair. But it seems like I'm wondering if that's what caused him to turn, against Baez, because he was forced to kneel before Baez, and that seems like the last time he knelt before anybody. And maybe it was part of the process of becoming an eater that he was just like, you know what, no, I'm done, and I can't do this anymore, not for you.
That is a good point. That actually does tie in pretty well. I never considered Shanked in my theory.
For him, maybe it was a bridge too far, but Baez also miscalculated that Shank would be that willful to basically, give him the finger and go his own way. And that's why he thinks that King Casimir was like a piss poor leader and a coward and this and that. And maybe it wasn't that he was a coward in the sense that he wouldn't fight in battle or anything like that, but he wasn't willing to go as far as Baez wanted him to go.
I feel like that's exactly it. I mean, it kind of ties in, doesn't it? Because we know that Baez pushes people so far, like Shanked, like Giselle, that they either break or they leave if they can.
Yeah.
And it's funny that Yoru is just like, yeah, no, I'll just be your servant, whatever.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, it's interesting about Sulfur is he's just kind of like go with the flow. Like, oh yeah, okay, I'll do it. I'll lead him. I'll be your emissary. I'll be your right hand. And we find out what happens to him in Wisdom of Crowds, and it's
Yeah, I think that there is something to be said that Yoru is more inclined to become an eater because Baez already is one. I will say that it would have to have been after a certain point, though, that he would have been eating, right? Because it would have to have been after the seed, right? Because otherwise, why would he have done it before?
Right. If he was already an eater, then he would have. I mean, we already know that they have these like restrictive diets, right? Like,
yes,
apparently apples are okay on the diet because we see Sulfur eating apples.
I always felt like that's just Yoru being a fucking weirdo because no other eater says that. It's just Yoru. I think Yoru's just being a weirdo, yeah. Or maybe it's one of the curses that eaters get, that they can only eat apples or human flesh.
Well, I mean, even in Best Served Cold, Shanked is after he's cutting up Lucky Nim, he's thinking about, oh yeah, I'm gonna season this rump steak and I'm gonna use this particular oil and get some nice bread to go with it. Maybe smear some some pate on there, and
oh god, those chapters make me feel so hungry. Is that weird?
I mean, hey man, a steak pan fried with a little bit of nice crusty bread and some good vinegar and spices.
It always reminds me of, have you ever seen Hannibal, the Netflix show? He eats there's like a montage of him hunting down a human being and then pan frying some nice liver, and it's just like, ooh, that looks tasty.
It does.
It's very accurate.
Or like the what was it? Was it Red Dragon where he's on the plane and he's got like his caviar and his whatever, and then he's got a little bit of Ray Liotta's brain.
Yeah.
And then and the little boy's looking at him and he's like, "Oh, do you want to try it?" And he's like feeding him brain.
That's so terrible.
It's such a good film. It's not a good film, but it is.
Yeah, yeah. I understand completely what you're saying, but so I mean they make it fun, It's it's not like they're kind of hunched over and or like how Schickel disposed of who's it, Superior, what's his face? Not Varuz. Yeah. Like I'm guessing she had to do that in a hurry. Or how Ptolemy partially consumed Kwai. So I mean Ptolemy was also an eater.
No, Ptolemy had nothing to do with that. Ptolemy ate him, and no, actually no, you're actually right. I'm gonna edit that out, by the way.
Now I will say, we kind of, not to rehash too much here of our video, but I will say the idea that Baez is an eater, as I will say that scene in the Heroes is like the main thing, right? For like
that's the main evidence that I would have that he's because it's like you don't see anything mentioned about like farm animals nearby or like where he could possibly. I mean there are references to sheep nearby, but that was in another chapter where was it?
I would say my argument against it is my argument is against Baez being an eater. It's just mostly because of how, and I do think this is it would be a good like character thing to happen for him if this wasn't the case. But I think he thinks of himself as better than Eaters. Like he doesn't have to stoop so low. And but George's argument always has been, well, he's defeated Kalul, and now he's like, well, why not? I just don't think that he would still stoop that low, personally.
I've defeated Kalul. It's Miller time. Where did I put that Miller?
Yeah, but I don't think it's just that. I think it's that he has had this experience of being all powerful for the first time in what, like 2,000 years, and he's just like, oh yeah, I could get used to this. I could get used to being super powerful all the time, even if it's got this horrible cost. But Baez kind of seems like a bit of an ascetic anyway. It's not like he indulges on anything. You don't see him gambling or whoring or going out drinking or something like that. He's not really. So what kind of punishment would the Ethan do upon him anyway?
That he can't stop eating.
Yeah, but would he give a shit?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question.
He literally owns a machine that crushes people to death every single day as a byproduct.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference between that and taking them and eating them?
It is well, when you put it that way, it's a different form of eating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like his bank, and that's the same thing. Like Eaters can't stop eating, and his bank can't stop eating people, and it has to constantly be fed. That's why he has to keep expanding Valiant and Bulk.
Mm-hmm. Which is why I think it would be so thematically on point if he did turn out to be, or has turned to even if it drives him to ruin.
Well, I mean, and that I think is really been Joe's plan for Baez from the beginning. Is like he set this guy up for a fall. I don't know if you've ever seen either the British version or the American version of House of Cards, but that's why people get hooked on it, is because you want to see this guy eventually get taken out or fall. And I think that's
the same thing with like Breaking Bad as well.
Right. It's like you eventually want to see the villain, and let's face it, you know, everybody from Walter White to Frank Underwood to, you know, any anti-hero is really, in any other piece, would be the villain, you know? And you want to eventually see them get their comeuppance, and by waiting, you know, for what, we're on what, 7 books now? No, 10 books.
10 books.
10 books now, and it hasn't happened yet. So is Baez really that clever, or is it that, you know, it's going to take some kind of quasi divine intervention for him to finally, you know, is Juvens going to have to come back from the land of the dead to bring his wayward disciple to heal?
Interesting.
I like that. Do you think that Ricker's final vision is Juvens, or do you think it's Ao's?
I personally think it's Ao's, because he never, it just says that Ao's left. And when people leave, there's an indication that they're going to come back. But
it's funny, because it's sort of like Jesus, isn't it? It's like, yeah, Jesus left, and then one day he's going to come back again. But we know for a fact that Aeus was actually an actual person, like a real god. It's like,
well, and he was,
that's kind of terrifying.
Right, and that's the even Baez said, right, like, oh, when Logan was asking about Pharaoh being part demon, you know, he's like, well, what does she have or whatnot? And then he says, oh, much less than half. If she was half, then, you know, like mountains would be able
to blind your eyes to look upon it and all that.
Yeah, and so this vision that Ricka had was, to me, it was so terrifying that, you know, I don't think that it would be somebody like Juvens, because in before they are hanged, when they're in what is that? Was it Kelsis? That
okay.
where they start their journey, there are statues of Juvens, and he seems kind of like a almost like a Socrates figure, kind of stern, but at least human looking, and he's a quarter demon, whereas Aez was half, and it seems like he was terrifying because he was kicking full demons' asses. So, and banishing them to the other side and sealing the gates and whatnot. And that was somebody that was half demon. For him to return, it would be some very terrifying event. I don't think Juvens would come back and tear the sky in half and be at least in the audiobooks, like returned.
Yeah, I definitely think that he could be returning. Is that kind of one of your thoughts as well? Is that, like, of all the possibilities, if Aez is the biggest one, just I agree too. I think Aez would be, because it'd have to be the most like insane shit ever. And I don't think it would be Juvens, because I'm pretty sure Juvens is actually dead. He's one of the few people who are, him and Canadius are definitely dead. Just because everyone agrees that they are. I mean, we don't have any other evidence, but Aez was gone. I have a feeling, though, and I kind of touched on this in a few YouTube videos, is that Aez was probably not as good as he's made out to be, judging by the way his sons are with each other, and judging by the fact that there are like no other magic users of that level. I have a feeling Aez was a genocidal maniac who wanted the world for himself and then got bored and left.
It does.
Harrison, this actually brings me onto another theory that I was going to bring up with you, Croker. Exactly that all of it, even Baez is pretty much the only person that ever talks about the old world with Zachary, with the Magi, with Juvens in the Great Hall and all of this, like just absolute over the top shit. Why wouldn't he be lying about that? Why wouldn't he be lying to big it up to make it seem like it's better than it is?
Oh,
why isn't this whole myth of the old world with the whole battle on the top of the House of the Maker? I know the House of the Maker is real, but it doesn't mean the rest of it happened.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, if you're the only person that knows what happened there, you can make up any story you want, and people will accept it, right? Because it's like, well, why would he lie? And it's like, well, maybe because he's just making himself seem more important than he actually is. I mean, for all we know, Canadius slipped and fell off the House of the Maker, Or, I mean, and given Joe's writing style, that's not that far fetched,
That would be hilarious if he just
exactly. I
like
mean, Joe loves to bring like these hearty characters, like haughty characters even, like Giselle. He likes to bring people down,
right? Or even Logan when he was creeping up on the houses, on the plane, right? Say one thing for Logan Nine Fingers, say that he's stealthy, and then he trips.
He just trips and face plants straight away.
Yeah, face plants and like rolls down the hill. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Baez is making the whole thing up. But then Yulwei only saw Canadius fall and Ptolemy fall. So he, again, doesn't know what happened exactly. Or if Ptolemy went first, maybe Canadius was so heartbroken that he killed himself.
That's a good point. I think about that. Not to drag this part on for too long, but I will say that he, it doesn't seem like Canadius was the best father, keeping his daughter cooped up in there.
Right.
Not letting her do shit.
Very, very overprotective father.
Yeah.
But getting back to like the whole Aez not being a good guy, to me, that thing kind of smacks of Greek mythology,
Yeah.
Where you have Cronus and Zeus, Poseidon, Hades kind of overthrowing their father. And so maybe that's what happened. Maybe the brothers got together, Glystrad, Bedesh, Canadius, and Juvens, and banished their father instead of him leaving, and maybe Juvens just said, well, my dad left and gave us these gifts and said, he'd be back later or whatever. But so the whole deception angle, I think, is probably one that even the brothers may have kind of kept to themselves, because who's going to tell?
Yeah.
And maybe Glystrad, maybe they banished Aez to the other side, and Glystrad was trying to get him back because he didn't. I'm not saying Glystrad was the good guy in this, but maybe. And there's a reason why all his writings are banned, right? Like there's the black.
I mean, it could be like a Paradise Lost kind of thing, right? Everybody's going to hate Glystrad because Glystrad eventually ended up destroying half of the known world.
But was it an attempt to get his dad back, or
exactly? I mean, Aez could have been a complete abusive asshole over that, you know.
Mm-hmm. I have a feling he was. I mean, he gave he at least had favoritism. He definitely wasn't a great father. But what was one of the other theories you guys were talking about? Let's see here. Let me pull up the list.
So let me pop back in here real quick. I stepped away to go get my laundry, and I waited like a total of 20 minutes for the fucking elevator. Sorry about that. And my service on my phone cut out while I was trying to listen in over there.
Sorry, we had a good conversation about a good flow and everything.
Was it? Did you guys covered Baez and Eater? I came in like 5 minutes ago, but Baez and Eater, you guys covered that. Did you cover the Shenka Logan thing yet?
That's what I was going to suggest to move on to.
Perfect. Okay, go ahead, Harrison. Go ahead.
So Croker, not to push too fast here. If you guys want to keep talking about that subject, I'm happy to. We can keep talking about that one. But I did think we should touch base on the other one you wanted to talk about with Logan and the Shenka with his family. If did Logan's family actually die to Shenka, or did he go crazy as a Bloody Nine? My initial thought on that one is that the Dogman was there with him, and the Dogman, but we also never hear the Dogman talk about it. So I don't know. What's your theory on that?
So this is a pet theory of mine that I don't think that the Shenka killed his family per se. It's possible that maybe the Shenka attacked and he went Bloody Nine and ended up killing everybody. And afterwards he sort of woke up, and like he did at the high places, and it didn't matter who was near him. Rest in peace, Tuldur. My boy.
Back to the mom.
And whatever Crummock's son was, whatever his name was, I don't remember. Doesn't matter. Because even Crummock doesn't remember his son's name.
Nah.
And so maybe in that state he ended up killing everybody, and maybe he went to go find the Dogman, because I don't know if the Dogman was with him when it happened. All we know is that he was with him when he came over the hill and saw everything burned and in ruins.
Yeah.
So did he go and just kill everybody and then decide to go find the Dogman? And because we see in Before They Are Hanged, he killed his best friend growing up, right? And then pushed him out of a tree and said he fell. So that got me thinking, well, maybe he didn't, so that got me thinking maybe he did murder his family and the entire village. And once he got out of that Bloody Nine state, everybody's kind of dead and starting to rot. And he panicked and went to go find the Dogman, which would take more time, so that when they came over the hill again, then he sees the fires burning and whatnot, and everything is just in ruins, and the Dogman's like, we gotta go. And maybe the Dogman knew, because he knew Logan, and Logan gets like this, and he just was like, you know what, if he said that's what happened, then that's what happened, and that's his story, and I'm sticking to it.
I mean, it's just like in Sharp Ends. And I can't remember what the chapter's called, but the chapter with the Bloody Nine chapter with Bethel and all that.
Yeah,
made a monster.
Made a monster, exactly.
Fantastic.
You know, it's like Bethel walks towards the dungeon wherever he's going, and Dogman's just stood there like, I don't know, I didn't see shit.
I told you, didn't I tell you to like keep him out of here? You didn't tell me how.
Exactly.
Which is poignant on Dogman's part, because how do you stop somebody who, when he gets like this, seems like a force of nature,
easily
right?
murder you.
Right, and like even Logan says, right, easier to stop the white flow than it is to stop the Bloody Nine. So
I mean, it's absolutely true. It's just like a testament to how well Joe's built this character that every single fucking person is scared of him, even his best friend.
Right. Because you don't know. You know, it's like, you know, and even Taldur, right? Like we hear from Logan's perspective in Last Argument of Kings, we hear Taldur talking to Logan, like, and he asks him, "Do you know me?" And it turns out he knows him, but he just doesn't care.
I think the only thing that might be contravening your message is that we never see Logan actually ever deny that he did something. He's always like, "Oh, I don't know."
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Like he never.
So when he
denies
absolutely says, "I came over the hill and I saw that my village had been destroyed,"
Yeah,
that doesn't sound like a Bloody Nine kind of. Oh yeah, maybe. Oh, you know, one day I was sat with my family and the next minute they were dead. It must have been the Shanker.
yeah, and also like when and before they're hanged, when they go over like their scars and stuff, right? He tells that story, that monologue about everything that he's done. I think, you know, to really drive home the point that he is as likely to kill them as all of them instead of just one of them, by, you know,
Right.
if it killed his family, his wife and kids, you know, I think he would have said it. You know, I mean, he already talked about, you know, stabbing his dad, whatever, in a blind rage.
Maybe he
And
did talk about it in his in the Blade itself, when he's talking to Kwai at the library. You know, he lists all these different ways that he's killed people. You know, where he like pushed women down wells and he crushed people with rocks, and
I think that's when he's talking to. Isn't that when he's talking to West?
no, he's talking to Kwai. No, he's talking to Kwai.
It's that whole like pre-campaign speech, you know.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Is that right at the beginning? Jesus.
Yeah, right at the beginning. But he doesn't. There, he just talks about campaigns and what he's had to done on a campaign, and just, you know, like he's vague.
No, I love that speech. I love that speech.
Right,
right. But what I'm saying is, like, he's just listing the ways that he's killed people, and you know, we don't have any kind of one-to-one. I mean, it could have been during the sack of Carleon where he did all these things, or whatnot, or just, you know, random battles that we don't know about. But to me, it's like it's not out of the realm of possibility where he also did those things to his family, and he's just kind of listing them, but he doesn't say like, oh, the woman I pushed down the well was my wife, or, you know, things like that.
I see what you're saying.
It is a bit of a reach. I admit that.
Yeah.
But I actually feel that's really interesting, because he does say that he pushed her down the well because he killed her son.
Yeah. You know, and we know that Logan had at least 2 children.
Yeah. And
so that could be a dissociation. That is actually really interesting.
It could be, but I just think he would have remembered it. He would have, like, or at least he would have been vaguely aware of it, like, you know, like you mentioned before with Tolduru and everything. Like, I think it's not something he would just omit from talking about the scars. And I think his reaction to Giselle, the House of the Maker, where, you know, Shanko or whatever, and how visceral his anger is about how much he hates them and like what they did to the village and his family. I think that's that, you know, there's no reason for him to act that. There's no reason for him to pretend that.
I just wanted to put in here. I think I agree. I like the idea just because I love theories and stuff too, and so I don't think that is the case. However, I do think that Logan tends to view things, especially in the past, not exactly as they are, or at least he sees it from only his point of view rather than trying to objectively view something. So I do have a feeling that his life at home may have not been as pleasant as he may have thought or
Right,
he'd
okay.
like to think about. I think he may have not been the best father. I mean, we saw what he was like in Red Country. I guarantee you, whenever his dad said you need to go find help across the mountains, he fucking up and left right away. And then, yeah, is he upset that his family got killed by Shanka? Does he love people? Of course he does. He's still a person, and we've seen Logan do good things. But I bet he immediately was like, "Yeah, I'll go fight in the war, Dad. No problem." Yeah.
I think he was, well, like he told Shy, right? When he saw that his farm was burned, and again, that's kind of shades of what allegedly happened in the north, is he felt relief and joy and, oh boy, I get to go killing again,
Yes.
Mhm.
and so to me that kind of feeds into like what exactly is the Bloody Nine. Is it this alternate personality? Is it, I subscribe to the theory that no, Logan is the Bloody Nine. Logan is the mask that he wears, you know?
I like that. I think that's exactly it. I think he's a violent person brought up in a violent world from the beginning. This isn't the kind of place where you want to bring up children where everybody's murdering each other and it's just like, oh, what happened to Uncle Ulf? And it's like, oh, his split head got split open by an axe. It's just the way life is.
Right. And I think like in this universe, like the only real decent parents are like Glocta and Croy.
Cluckter, who put his daughter into a massively life-changing situation and endangering as well for
I would say
for like 10 years.
Glockta and Artie have stated to themselves that they were not the best of parents. However, they also were way better than a lot of the parents we see. And I would say that Croy is probably the best example of a good dad, but also Giselle does seem like a pretty good dad. If you want to say Orso's a good person, how much of that came from Giselle? I would say the majority of it.
I would say the majority of it, because Therese is kind of a
He's a crazy bitch. Yeah.
Mhm.
well,
Whoa,
and even,
whoa.
well, I
Well,
mean,
oh yeah, Therese is a crazy bitch. Ario's a selfish cunt, and Foscar is a weakling.
There we go.
So I don't think
Right.
he's not a very good dad at all.
Duke Orso is the
Oh,
best dad.
Duke Orso is like, well, he loved Monza more than he loved his own children. So,
Yeah.
and which is
Till he
funny
kills
because,
him.
well, there.
We just talked about this, George. He had to be proven. He had to be proven wrong with his own eyes.
Well, I was thinking more like Therese
Whatever.
as a mother to Orso.
Yeah, that's what I was
She
talking about too.
she's more about duty, and because that was her whole life. She wasn't able to be with the woman that she loved. She was forced into this marriage by her father. She produced her heirs, and then she decided, okay, that's it, I'm done. But she stayed with Giselle for the sake of, the children, essentially.
I actually really love how Therese acts with Orso in, especially in A Little Hatred. She's just like, you have to choose a wife. Go on.
Yeah.
One.
Bring out the portraits. It's like a,
It's for your own fucking good, you little shit.
ye olde Tinder,
Exactly.
Mm.
Oh.
Mm.
And like, oh no,
Right.
you swiped left on every single one of these. Orso, get it together.
Do we want to touch, add anything to that theory, that general theory?
The only other thing I would think of is if when you were a kid, you may have remembered something happening a certain way, or you disassociate and kind of lie to yourself that this is how it happened. and over the course of time, you end up believing your own lie. And I think that is possibly what Logan did, like to tell himself, I didn't do this, the Shanka did it, and that's the lie he told himself so that he could live with what he did. And eventually he ends up believing it, and that kind of leads to his unreasonable, well, not unreasonable, but his absolute hatred of the Shanka.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we still do have the Dogman there at the same time.
Right, and that's, but again,
so
like,
he has to go through the exact same thing to be able to not,
well,
or at least be so scared that he would never bring it up again.
Yeah, there's that part. Because in Made a Monster, right? Bethod's wife says, "Remember he killed all those sheep because they were bleeding, they were making noise, and he was trying to sleep, and he woke up in a field of dead sheep, but he was able to just sleep there like nothing happened."
Sheep are pretty fluffy, to be fair. I mean, if you were drunk,
no, that's true. I mean, who knows? Maybe he was using one as a pillow. Maybe he crawled inside one like a tauntaun. I don't know.
A little blanket of dead, recently slaughtered sheep.
Yeah.
Lovely.
But then in that same short story, right? He had decided to let Rattleneck's son go and give him to Bethod, and then at the end he says, "I changed my mind."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that there definitely is a lot of questions that comes up with Logan's memories and how he views things, especially in correlation to how other people view him, and that's what makes him so interesting. I don't know if he killed his family, but I definitely think there's more going on with that past like village life, like how much of it was roses and butterflies, like like what he thinks it is.
Does Logan strike you as the kind of person that would sit by the river with his wife and just kind of hang out?
Yeah, he does, but he would also be. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So, well, I think it's kind of a gray area. I do like the idea though, that who knows what the fuck else he's done that he says he hasn't done, or well, not hasn't done, like stated, but how many things has he done and he hasn't even thought about it? And again, so.
And when you look at like Baez being an unreliable narrator, right? Who's to say that Logan also isn't?
Logan is wildly unreliable.
Yeah. Oh, for sure he is, for sure.
And even when you see the dynamic of like Logan being thrown out of Carleon, banished by Bethod, he thinks it was that he was banished, whereas later on it's revealed that Baez requested Logan.
Well, he requested that he at least exile him, right,
so that he could find him for his little seed hunt.
Yeah, whenever the case is, because I mean there was time that passed
because he somehow knew that he could talk to the spirits.
Right, so he's like, I'm gonna hold on to this guy. Don't kill him, just exile him. I might need him. And then a couple years pass, and he turns out he did need him.
Right.
And yeah, Baez is, I would say, I don't want to say he's unreliable as a narrator. I would say he's untrustworthy as a narrator.
Well, yeah, unreliable, untrustworthy.
Yeah, he's unreliable for us as the reader.
But then again, like anything, right? He believes his version of events.
Oh, of course he does.
Because nobody's the villain in their own story. So
when you're right, right?
I mean, we've even seen him be massively corrected in the first Lord trilogy. Like he goes to Bethod and he's like, and Bethod's just like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And Logan's like, "Oh yeah, shit. What the fuck am I doing?"
Yeah,
it's literally right that he doesn't even try to argue. He's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm wrong."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like he believes his own delusions, but they're like paper. But because he's so fucking strong and big and fearsome, nobody's ever going to challenge him. But the second somebody does, they're just like, he's just like, "Oh yeah, fuck."
Well, it depends on the state of mind. Whenever, if Dogman, when Dogman confronted him, he was already too far down in his little self-pity kind of. So he was like, "Fuck you, Dogman. I'm a big man." And Dogman's like, "Fuck you, then." So
I'm a real boy.
Then, I mean, was it Dogman or was it Dow that straight up asked him, "Did you kill Tull?"
No, that was Dogman.
That was Dogman, and he doesn't admit it, but he doesn't deny it either.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up.
He's like, I don't know.
Yeah, he just like changes the subject, which is, I mean, sometimes no answer is an answer, right?
Exactly, but I think like in his head, he doesn't believe that he did it.
Right, and
I think that's really what the Bloody Nine is. It's from some way for him to blame things on.
Yeah. But
even if it isn't, just as long as it isn't him, he blames everyone else as long as it isn't him.
Right.
Right, like he had no choice, or it was out of his hands. He found himself in that position.
Yes. I just felt like doing it. I just felt like killing that kid, and it's just like, yeah, that's okay, but because it was the Bloody Nine, it's not me.
And sometimes, it's just sometimes the reason that you are the way you are is just sometimes you're an asshole,
Yeah, sometimes.
And we all have periods of time when we have assholey behavior, and
100%.
But most of us don't go to jump from feeling like that to murder.
That's true.
Well, hopefully, anyway.
Hopefully, there are some steps, and Logan just tends to skip levels when he decides to do what he does. But again, is that just a product of his upbringing, or is that I never really bought into the whole like Logan is possessed by a spirit thing.
Oh,
well, we'll get into that.
No, that's a horrible theory. It's just because.
Wait, well, we're not there yet. We're not talking about that yet.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. You don't want to transition into it, Jeff?
Can we not try and do a smooth segue?
Yeah, that's a smooth segue, Jeff.
What
a segue!
I wanted to break it up, but okay, fine, segue. Go ahead.
Or did you
want to do the meme of the week? Is it you want to do the meme of the week?
No, that's right.
We started getting into
George is editing this one, so.
That's fair. That is fair. Yeah, that's fair. I forgot what I was going to say now, Jeff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, so
having a good conversation.
Yes, for sure. Now I'm all torn up too because I'm laughing. It's not a smooth segue anymore. Let's go ahead and break up this segment.
It's fine. You guys said like
you got what you wanted, Jeffrey. Shut up.
I'm just saying. You could be like, yeah, you said that's such a stupid theory. That's what you said. So go ahead.
I can't even remember what we were talking about.
The stupid theory is the theory goes,
Logan
and
it's possessed by a spirit that is the Bloody Nine.
Yes, thank you, Kroger. Basically what happens is once a month, somebody who is new to the sub and new to First Law makes a post trying to. I know this isn't what they're trying to do initially. They're just trying to think of what's going on. But what it always comes down to is people are like, huh, what's going on with Logan? This surely can't be his fault. And yes, it's supposed to be ambiguous, but the truth is that it's a little bit of both probably. Logan doesn't remember shit. Does he become possessed of something? Maybe. But he also at the same time is fully aware of what he does and continues to do things that are also not just the Bloody Nine.
Right, because even when he's not in Bloody Nine mode, like when he was fighting amongst the stones, that's still pretty terrifying.
Yeah, that's pretty
and in Before They Are Hanged, I mean, if I was one of the new Empire guys, and this dude, like, it's what, like 13 on 1?
On 2.
On 2. And you guys are getting murked. I would have probably been like, you know what? Let's pack it in. Let's call it a day. We need more guys. But
I think the one thing that does support the theory is in the Fenris the Feared fight, like, he is getting absolutely crushed even after Calrope is disabled and isn't able to buff him anymore.
No. Once Carob is out, then
you notice there's a change in Fenris' strength.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, but he's still, this is a guy that's still twice his size. He's still getting crushed.
Right.
He's still in the bear hug. Right. He's still in the bear hug. He's still getting like squished, but he feels like a bit of a sag in his strength, and then he's able to wiggle and then drive the sword in. So, yeah.
The only evidence that I would put forward for the Bloody Nine being a separate entity, like a spirit or a demon or something, would be when Shivers is in Viscerine and he's fighting Ganmark's men, and he says he hears, not his voice, but the Bloody Nine's voice coming out of his mouth. So it's.
But that may be a part of his further delusion, just a part
right.
Because having his eye fucking burned out.
Right. So Shivers himself is not in a good mental state himself.
But he also actually hears the Bloody Nine's voice in his dream segment as well.
Right. So is that just him dreaming?
Delude himself. Oh, it could be. It could be.
Is that just him dreaming? Him having not so clever dreams, according to the dog man in his dreams? Or is it? I saw a thread on Reddit today that somebody put forward that maybe Logan, because of his ability to speak to spirits, maybe for lack of a better word, the veil around Logan is somewhat thinner, so that spirits would be able to cross over.
I mean, I really like that.
I see it, but
okay. So I have
I subscribe to that though. I think it's just that
it's a cool
Logan
idea.
Dissociates.
Yeah, I think that there. I will say there is one aspect of that, and I never thought of it in that way. But it would be a cool idea that there is one specific spirit or demon, or everything comes from the other side, right? There's something on the other side that is connected to Logan in some way, but they are not. This is a clear point that has to be made. If this is true, it would not be, and we never know. But it would never be confirmed. But I think it would be cool that there is one sort of demon that's connected to Logan, and he does take over. But Logan is fully in partnership and fully aware and fully on board with him. And it's not like he gives over on purpose. Sometimes he gives over on purpose. Sometimes he doesn't. That's the one thing that makes this whole thing interesting. Is the fact that Logan multiple times is like, "Oh no, not now," or it's like, if only he had the Bloody Nine. That implies that he does not have control over that part of it, and obviously that line is gray because he uses it as an excuse to himself. But there are certain times, like you said, with Finish the Feared, where it's like, seems a little impossible unless there is something else going on. So I think it's possible, but I agree, it's kind of.
And I think the reason that Joe hasn't really gave a definitive answer is because it encourages discussions like this, and it keeps people interested, and they will buy more books.
That's a good point. Probably right.
Joe was definitely sowing seeds there, right? Joe. I always try to stress this, that Joe did his university degree in psychology, so he knows how to manipulate people. So it's like, I'm just gonna do the J.J. Abrams things where it's like, well, I'm just gonna leave this completely unanswered.
No, it just sounds so funny.
It's literally everything. Every single part of the lore is completely unanswered, and it's like,
And I kind of appreciate that as a reader, where he leaves things sort of vague, because that way the reader can use their own imagination to kind of fill in the gaps. Like he kind of gives, he won't give a definitive distance like, between Adua and, what's that city or that town on, it's on a coast.
Brock's on a coast.
Right.
K.
Keln.
Keln. Yeah, he never gives a distance. He's not like, it's 300 miles between Adua and Keln. He just says it's over there somewhere.
I think
And it's
the one measurement that we purely get is it's 2 weeks from the border with Angland in the north to Adua, and that's land and ship. So it's like
and
300
ambiguous.
miles, something stupid like that.
Well,
And the ships seem advanced, but they don't seem that advanced, so it's kind of hard to
Right.
tell too.
and it's 2 weeks by ship, right?
It's 2 weeks by ship
But it's
and land.
half land and ship, yeah.
Half land and ship.
To be fair, if you were just gonna say, and then land again, probably, if you were gonna go to the north and then to like say Ufrith or no, not Ufrith. Oh, or you could go by Ufrith at that point, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, Ufrith seems to be like no, because you do have
port.
Ufrith has a port. Yes,
Ufrith is a port city.
Yeah.
So,
and that makes me just subscribe to the theory that there's just constant northerly winds. Southerly winds. So you're just constantly going. Yeah, it's fine. You're fine.
Whereas you have other writers who it's like, no, it's this many miles between these 2 points, and then here's a map that I bothered to draw.
And then they fuck it up.
Right. And then that's where you run into problems, is because you've stated in your world that it's this long and it takes this long to get there. And so it's like, how fast are these guys walking? How fast is
and that's why I love it how people are still talking about Joe's characters and not his stupid little details.
Yeah.
Well, I think it also saves him because he hasn't used all those stupid little details where it's, like in the Heroes, he'll say like, oh, a mile or 2 away, they could see this, and that's how you would reckon distance. You're like, I think that's about a mile away. Like,
I don't think they
their rangefinder out to find it,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody even mentions ranges or measurements at all in the Heroes. It's just like over the way in the distance by that forest over there where you see the wall. Yeah, and that's just like that's how you would do it. Oh, I can see that. Can you see that? All right, okay, that's where we're going.
Right. I mean, like in Lord of the Rings, sometimes Legolas would be like, "Oh, well, I think they're at least like 3 leagues away or something like that." And you're like, "Okay, first of all, what's a league?"
A league is
it's about 3 miles.
Have you ever read? Oh, this is really stupid. Have you ever read the King Killer trilogy? And I think this comes from an old saying. In that book, he asks like an old man on the road, like, "How long is a league?" And he's like, "Well, it's basically a farmer's guess on how long it takes to walk in a day."
Yeah, you said that was the King Killer Chronicles.
Yeah,
I again, another guy like waiting for a door of stone.
Yeah.
That's what makes it so hard to recommend book series to people, is a lot of the book series that I've read and enjoyed, you're still waiting for like the next one to come out. Same thing with the Gentleman Bastard sequence.
Yeah, I know. But they're still good anyway.
They're fantastic.
I still enjoy them anyway.
Like doing a reread of Red Seas Under Red Skies.
Oh man, that series has the best insults I've ever heard.
Yeah,
do you look at when they're doing the training on the yacht with what's his name, Calcis, and it's like, "Get down, you fucking pig rapists, or I'll fuck your mother."
It's like,
wow.
I'm going to assume that you are so stupid you don't know how to count to 1.
Oh, it's so dumb.
Boy.
Well,
sorry, we should move on now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's all good. It's all good. All right. So we'll have a couple more theories to cover with Croker in a second. But for right now, we're going to turn it over to Georgie Boy, the art selector, to go over some memes, I hope. Your silence is not encouraging.
Yes, so Croker McGee was the recipient of our latest or second to latest, I can't remember, award for House of the Meme Maker, and it was the Jeremy Clarkson one. How did you come up with that? What was the inspiration for coming up with the Jeremy Clarkson past the Morvia meme?
I'm a huge Top Gear fan and Grand Tour and basically all things Clarkson. And it's that personality where I just was kind of thinking of something that I could have swore that somebody had used that particular meme before, but when you were talking about him poisoning the Crown Asteria, it just kind of popped in my head like, that sounds like something that Clarkson would do, and so I just looked for that particular frame where he had said, like, my genius sometimes generates gravity. And I thought that sounds like something that Morveer would say about himself. And just
it absolutely is.
Jeremy Clarkson is like a successful Morveer if he was cool.
Yeah, and like I had mentioned in the subsequent thread, I'm like, Morveer is a very fail-forward character. Because when you actually look at his exploits, it's like a lot of it is just kind of sheer dumb luck, or when he went to assassinate Malthus, right? Instead of just poisoning the one ledger, he decides to poison them all. And it's a very shotgun mentality, like, well, I'm bound to hit something.
I find that one especially funny because it's like, this one's literally on his desk. Right. Do you not think he's going to touch that one? Right. Like, do you have to poison the rest of them?
Right. So it's a very
it's like shock. We always do in when I was learning science. It's called shotgun sequencing, where you literally put as many fucking samples as possible into an equation, and you're like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get something at least.
Right. Or it's kind of a brute forcing to get your result. Like, well, if I poison them all, because he's like, we don't know which ones are gonna or in circulation. It's like, well, how about we start with the one on his desk that he has to touch first thing in the morning, and just leave it there. Leave that. But no, because
I'm going to bring that up. I am going to bring that up with Joe when we get him on the show eventually.
Well, but I'm saying, like, that's the idea that he doesn't really think it through. I mean, he's careful when it comes to the poison itself, but for the distribution, he just kind of throws stuff at the wall to see what sticks.
Well, I think in defense of Morveer here, I will say he had to be sure. Like he said in the book, because we covered it, he wasn't sure that maybe, what's to say, Malthus wasn't going to work from a different ledger. But Malthus works from ledgers. So he's like, if I got to find one, I got to find them all. Now, I'll just say he's very thorough. That's what I'll say.
Right. I mean, he's thorough, but at the same time, it's like I said, you start with the one on his desk, which he did, and then he was like, oh, no, our work is just getting started. We're going to poison them all. But it just seems
overkill much?
Yeah, just a little bit. I mean, normally poison, when you assassinate somebody, when you poison them, it's because you don't want anybody to know that they were the target, or that they were the target for assassination. On the opposite end, there's this term that I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's called haystacking.
Yeah.
So really, the bank at Westport was haystacking, where so many people died in this mass casualty event that you're not sure who the intended target was. It's like blowing up a plane to kill one guy.
I just find it funny that Morveer doesn't then defend himself with that. If he had just said that to Monzo, it'd been like, And of course, that's the whole fiction, isn't it? Like,
right.
People don't talk to each other because
exactly right. And if she, but I don't think Monza cared that anybody knew that Malthus was the target, because
I think that Morveer did exactly as he should have done inside of that situation, and what any assassin would have done in order to get the job done, given the circumstances of what's high security the Baking House of Allen and Bulk is. I think it's that job. Even though Monza places a lot of blame on Morveer for that job is like the job that he does correctly. It's his other jobs that he is, like killing his mom or killing everyone in the orphanage or killing his old mentor. Probably unnecessary,
Oh, I would say completely unnecessary as far as killing his mother goes. Like, but for that particular job, if I'm paying you to kill one person and you end up killing 50.
But Monza did say it doesn't matter who gets in the way. I will say that.
She did.
I mean, I'm a Monza defender. You mean you listen to the podcast? You know how much we love him. But she,
I guess Morveer took that literally, like, oh, you don't care. But then at the same time, if she'd let him poison the people in the tower house, they would have never been found out.
Yeah, exactly right.
But I really think that speaks to this deeper future story point with Monza, where she is like a lot more or a lot less callous than she seems. Like the Monza that we hear about in the stories wouldn't balk at having 50 people poisoned. But
the butcher of Capriel would not
at that point. Exactly. Right. But the person that we're seeing at this point.
But yeah, Monza Mercado, values life, and even Casca calls her out on that, You never risked a soldier's life that didn't need to be risked. And she cared enough about her men to know who was best suited for what task. Whereas, Casca was just like, here's a bag of gold, guys. First guy up the wall gets it. And I think that really shows the difference between like somebody like Monza who genuinely cares about people in an app. Well, it's weird because like when her father died, she didn't even bother burying him. She just rolled him into the river because the wheat had to be harvested. And it wasn't, and even Joe wrote, right, it's not that she didn't love her father. It's just that she didn't have time.
Things had to get done.
Things had to get done, and I don't have time to mourn.
I do also think that's sort of that's because what he told us to do in his dying letter.
Right.
So he fucking feel sorted. So that was the priority.
Right. He told her like, no, this has to get done, and she loved her dad enough that she wanted to make sure that got done.
So it's like honoring somebody in a way that isn't, who gives a shit about a body? I don't give a shit. What I do, just, I don't know, burn me for fuel, I guess.
I think that her dad, I think she misinterpreted what her dad said. As kids, we tend to, and every single child takes the blame if their parent, something bad happens to the parent or the parent is mad or anything like that. She took that responsibility on herself. Now, maybe not thinking that he died as her fault, but he said take care of the fields. He said take care of the fields not for his sake, not because it would honor him, but because he wanted to make sure that they had something to eat and she needed to push on. So that was his last message to her, was to keep going and plow the fields, because that's how we make our living. That's what we do. That's what Mercados do, And so she did that because of that, whereas she probably was thinking that, like, I have to do this to honor her dad, whenever really he was just saying, like, you have to take care of yourself.
I don't remember reading something from Monza's perspective about honoring him. I think it was just about, like, the thing had to be done.
Yeah, it had to be done. Yeah.
Well, when you're farming, like, I used to have a garden, and you have a really brief window of time to get things done. Like, Mother Nature is not going to wait for you to get your shit together, Mm-hmm. The rains are going to come when they come. If you miss your window to plant things, then you're going to have to figure something else out. And I think that was what he was trying to stress to her, is that, hey, I'm dying, but this has still got to get done. and she took that literally.
And literally did that exact same thing for the rest of her life.
Yeah. I mean, like, what happens to us in childhood, right, echoes on through the rest of our lives. So
yeah,
I think she kind of learned early on to just sort of compartmentalize things and, you know, show or try not to show the world her vulnerable side, but it does come out in other ways.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right, man. Yeah, I think it's pretty accurate for Monza. I don't think we were planning to talk about Monza, but we're almost done with Best Served Cold, or we will be by the time this episode releases. So I think that's fair. Do you have any other theories, maybe about Best Served Cold, that you would like to share, Croker?
So whenever Monza is quoting Bialeveld, and we know that Bialeveld is Baez in another iteration.
Yeah.
All the quotes are about money.
Yep.
And I just thought that was interesting. So I'm kind of wondering, like, what other quote unquote historical figures in the First Law universe are just Baez in another guy's writing stuff. Like, we never hear anything about what Zala wrote, you know? But we know that Zala was the best archlector that the Union,
the first and only,
right, that the Union has ever had.
Yeah.
Everything that Zola wrote was just let's put acid in this guy's eyes. Just
yeah. The other thing I noticed is, and I wonder if this came from Juvens, is that so the crown that Duke Rogant has made has a giant diamond in it. And so it made me think of when Baez is making the crown having the crown made for Giselle, he says, "Give it a big ass diamond."
So have you read the short story from A Great Change in Other Lives?
I have not. It's sitting here on my desk. I haven't.
Why have you not read it?
I haven't.
I haven't read it either.
I haven't read it.
Read it, Jeffrey.
I don't have it. I gotta buy it.
It's kind of like I had a friend describe it something like this to me. Like, you ever have, say you end up eating like somehow dodo meat. You know, the dodo bird.
Yeah. Yeah. So, sorry, it's a different direction than I was expecting you.
And it's so good. And then you go to get more of it, and you find out there are no more dodo birds.
Oh, you're the reason why they went extinct. Oh no.
Yeah, and you can only read something for the first time once. And for whatever reason, I have not gotten around to reading it yet. Because it's it's a thin book compared to like Sharp Ends,
That's a good reason.
And like when I read Sharp Ends, I think I bought it and read it in like a weekend.
Fair.
And yeah, so I haven't cracked it open.
Do you mostly read, or have you heard the audiobooks at all?
So I do both. I tend to read them first, and then I'll listen to the audiobook.
That's fair. Yeah, what I might tend to mostly do as well. What do you think of? Who do you think's the best Stephen Pacey performance? Like, who's the best character?
Well, that's a cheap answer, man, because it's got to be Glocta.
Yeah.
Yeah, Glocta's pretty. Yeah.
It would probably be like Glocta, then Casca.
Yeah, I would say that's about what it is for me as well.
Yeah. And then, I mean, even his narration voice is a character in and of itself, because that's not how Stephen Pacey talks.
That's a good point.
Right.
Think about it that.
No, I don't think there's a single character that actually represents how he talks normally.
Right, because you listen to him in interviews, and it's like, well, he doesn't sound like he's narrating, but then nobody really, when you have to read something or give a presentation, you know, you do kind of take on an affectation, or you put on a different voice.
Yes.
When you're reading, like, you know, back in school or whatever, you know, how you read in class is not how you spoke to your friends.
Right.
And I think professional voice actors do have like their quote unquote narrator voice that they use.
For sure. For sure. Kind of piggybacking off of what George asked you about your favorite character from Pacey. Give us, you know how we do the character spot? Give us your underrated, you know, or unspoken about character that we haven't like spotlighted, but you know, obviously has come up in the books, but doesn't have a POV. Who's somebody that you think we should shine a light on?
Okay, I should have probably. you did warn me at the beginning of recording, like, hey, think about this. And
yeah, well, it's all right. But,
I asked you like a week ago as well, but you know,
we'll cut out the uncomfortable. We'll cut out the uncomfortable silence. But
yeah, I'm
you
gonna
know,
have to.
yeah.
Well, I'm trying to think. Like all the like main characters and secondary characters have kind of been on over for the most part.
Anyone that like you didn't talk about enough, anybody that you've got like a little personal theory about.
Yeah.
Well, we always talk about, we love Practical Frost because obviously he has his own little knitting business.
Yeah, his little
care of his little children.
And his sewing empire.
Probably was it Morrow?
Harlan Morrow?
Harlan Morrow.
Yes. He's literally he would have been Monza if he had been a little bit more successful.
Really? You think so?
He was born on a farm, may have been a pig farm at least.
Pig farm.
He rose to some prominence. He could have been the same as, you know, anybody else being successful. He just happened to come up against Lockwood at that moment.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Monza wouldn't have gone into a monologue, a terrible backstory monologue, but okay.
That is true. Maybe not exactly like Monza, but you know what I mean. He could have been successful.
Right.
If he had, to be fair, if he hadn't monologued, would it really have helped him in that situation? Where he was, I think they were outnumbered, and.
Well, I like that. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, George.
No, it's just I meant like Glockter had the ambush figured out already. You know what I mean?
Right. It's one of those like he probably looked at the note from Morrow and is like, "This man is setting me up. This man is trying to kill me. So he wants me to be there at 3:00. I'm going to be there at 1:30." And yeah, it's like Morrow was playing checkers when Glockter was playing chess.
Exactly. It's just like the whole social climate thing, isn't it? So you just
right.
You're just one level below me.
And even Glockter's like really, a slaughter yard, really, you know, like I'm not upset that you tried to kill me. I'm just, you know, like we're professionals, goddammit.
And it's almost kind of meta as well because it's just like Glockter knows how many times the pig monologue has been done.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I can feed you to a pig and nobody would ever know. Like, that's been done in so many films, so many books. It's just so fucking prolific.
Well, and to me, it was also like, well, he used to work for the Lord Chamberlain Hoth, and then he ends up working for Morovia. So he's not inept. You know, he didn't like working for his bad boss Hoth, and somehow managed to weasel himself into Morovia's good graces. So we know that he was kind of he was somewhat adept at playing the game, at least politically. And yet his misfortune is that he ran across somebody who could play it better.
Right. Oh, Okay, so if you don't mind me asking, so like, would you say like Harlan Morrow is your guy? He's the one that you kind of.
He's your man. Would you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Would you say he's
I wouldn't
your
go.
man?
I wouldn't go as far to say that he's my man. I sympathize with the Harlan Morrows of the world.
Oh, I sounds a little communist, don't you think?
Uh-huh.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's communist. It's more like, he's I don't know if he's particularly good at his job. He seems to be, because they're, when they're counting the votes and whatnot, Morovia's guy seems to be ahead of Salt's guy.
Sure.
So,
sure.
He's really good at his job, but they always seem to be like crossing paths with each other. So Morrow gets the idea, hey, let me just take out Glocta, but he doesn't realize who he's dealing with,
Right, because he's used to the secretary life and he thinks he's got it big. He doesn't realize he's trying to go against somebody that knows his shit.
Right. Well, what's that expression? Everyone's gangster till it's time to do gangster shit.
Basically.
And he doesn't realize that he's dealing with a gangster. Like not Glocta's first rodeo.
But you do kind of feel sorry for him, and even Glocta feels sorry for him. He pities him from the moment that he starts doing the monologue. He's just like, "Oh my god, it's one of these guys again."
Oh, it's a sad story.
Man, you could have just stayed at home, sat
on your farm,
and you would have been perfectly happy. But you had to come here and get in my way.
Exactly, and it's like, dude, wrong place, wrong time. I am not the one to be to be fooling with, and yet here you are fooling with me.
Now you shall reap what you have sown.
Yeah, you've sown the wind, now reap the whirlwind.
That's it. Harlan Morrow, a man with such promise, such vision.
Well, if he had just stayed in his lane.
Yeah. He just didn't know his proper place and things.
Which is really a very Salt thing to think about. Just everybody stay in their place. The nobles are here and the peasants are there, and as long as the two don't mix, everything's hunky dory.
Upward mobility. What's that? Ugh.
Meritocracy. What? We don't like it.
Man. Don't like it. We don't like it. So we'll be winding down shortly, but Croker, we want to ask you a surprise question. Harrison, you take it away. You know the question.
Yeah, well, you're like, like I said, we've had a few people who listen to the podcast, but like you said, you've been listening since day one. You're a true fan, as some of our other guest spots have been. And we thought we'd ask you, what is your favorite part of the podcast? Why do you listen every week?
Really, it's more, I enjoy listening to your discussions about the chapters. Just the banter that you guys have. You guys seem to have really good chemistry, and I don't know if this is my own. I hesitate to call it mental illness, because
we're going there, are we?
Where I will find myself listening to the podcast and like contributing my own thoughts, and like, no, that doesn't sound right because of this, or oh no, I agree with George, or no, Harrison brought up a good point.
Healthy.
That's good.
So I think really it's just the interaction, and it's one of the few podcasts that I actually anticipate coming out every week.
Oh man, that's fucking
except for this one, because I don't like hearing the sound of my own voice.
Oh, you can skip this episode, bro. A lot of the guest spots, they don't even listen to their own episodes for the same reason. So
And then a couple of them just listen to them over and over, which is weird.
Yeah, looking at you, Will.
Super weird.
To me, like listening to an episode of a podcast that you appeared on, it's like clapping for yourself.
I think so too.
Wow,
I have a hard time
yeah.
listening to the episodes myself.
Well, I mean, I've listened to the episode, so
I mean, when you're the host,
I like to clap for myself.
Jeff, me and you have to listen to the episodes when we
That's
edit them. So
right.
Yeah, it's,
Well,
it's not your
I don't
fault,
mean
Zipper.
that.
It's by
I mean,
necessity.
I don't mean that. I mean like I put it on while I break out the chocolate syrup and the whipped cream. You know what I mean? So.
oh yeah, that self ego stroking.
It's like light some
Yeah.
candles.
Yeah.
Pour yourself
I
a
You gotta
hear
glass
take
of
care of
wine.
yourself.
Yeah, you know, you gotta take care of yourself. What's wrong with that? I like how I insulted Will, but then propped myself up. Oh my god, I'm the worst. Honestly though, go ahead.
Oh no, and I mean, like even your character spots where you highlight somebody who might just have like a sentence or two.
Yeah.
I appreciate the. It's almost like a mini Little People episode, you know, where
Yeah.
or like a Little People chapter, which I think Joe really should write more of in subsequent books
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah, I think so too.
they really flesh out the world, especially in something that's more character driven than. I mean, there is a narrative, but it almost seems like the narrative takes a back seat to the characters and how they interact with each other.
Yeah.
100%. And you know, I am not one for kind of revision mostly, but I would be 100% up for Joe writing Little People chapters for the first 3 books and Best of Gold.
That'd be awesome.
And then just put them in and then just add in that and just go, that's the version now.
Well, I think in Sharp Ends, there's one short story that is sort of a Little People chapter for Best Served Cold.
Yeah, there is.
There is.
Wrong place, wrong time. That's one of my favorite ones.
Time. And I kind of I advocate anybody who's getting into the series, like once you've sort of finished the quote unquote main books, is read Sharp Ends and then go back and read the main books, because I think it does add some context to certain events.
100%.
You know, and especially when you hit those main notes, like okay, like the wrong place, wrong time chapters, you can kind of see them from those Little People point of views, like the guy that was.
I think it's really important. I think it's really important for understanding that every single little character that gets mentioned or has a line or something like that is a person.
Right. And
you know what I mean? What's that feeling called when you just suddenly realise that everyone around you is the same as you? There's a word for it, isn't it?
Humanism. I don't know what it's called.
Well, it does kind of. To me, it breathes life into the world, where you realize that it's not just these main characters living in the world. There are other people going about their lives, and it's like if you've played any kind of video game, right? Like a GTA or like a Skyrim or something.
Yeah,
well, Skyrim is a good example where it almost feels like there's like maybe 12 people in the entire province,
Yeah.
sometimes. But
yeah.
But any Rockstar game where if you ever just kind of followed a person around, they have their own little routines. They go about, and I guess Bethesda games do that too, where characters will have a set routine that they
Yeah, no, I think you have a good point though. Like in a lot of book series, not all of them, and many of them do a great job, but you read, you meet a character, the character is like a one note, like, hello, I'm so-and-so, and whether they're a side character or in one scene, to me, Joe does such a good job at making each of those characters feel like a person, even if it's just for a scene or two.
Yes. Yeah. Whereas
and that's what we love to do here when we do our character spots. We like to
you highlight these background characters.
Exactly.
Yeah, I appreciate that about your podcast, because sometimes it jars, like, oh yeah, like I didn't realize that person, even though they only have a line or two, it's like, well, how did they end up where they're at? And it kind of makes you think about them after listening to the character spot. You're like, oh, it helps you appreciate the universe more.
Yeah.
And that there are other people going about their daily lives while these other things are happening. And like was it there again, like and I think Sharp Ends really does a good job of doing that. Like, hey, while this was happening in the main books, this other stuff was going on. Like the Fool Jobs. Is a
I
great
love the Full Job. I love the Full Job. It's so silly.
And to me, it answers some questions also about the world, where you see that magic wasn't just the purview of the Magi. There are clues that you can pull out of these other stories, like the time that Javra spent time in an insane asylum for wizards. So we know that there are other wizards other than the Magi in the world doing magic. When Craw and his crew go to steal the thing in the Fool Job, they're trying to steal it from a sorcerer. So there is magic in the First Law world that doesn't seem like it was taught to them by, like, Juven's 12 Magi.
Yeah, well, there are... I'm not sure if you're talking about this early on in the episodes, but there are, the schools of magic, which comes from Aeus, the known ones. To reach all magic comes from the other side, period.
Right.
But the three schools that Aeus had or passed down was speaking to spirits, which is really ambiguous. The high art and making, which is also ambiguous.
Well, there was also the fourth school that he didn't give to Glystrad. Was talking to demons and stuff.
Yes, the one that basically causes you to touch the other side, the one that makes you go fucking crazy.
That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support really does mean a lot.
Join us next week as we do another special episode.
Follow us on all of our social media and on the Reddit, and we have a website at circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. Thank you all again for listening.
Never take eggs from a metal-eyed man.